Hello and welcome to Landscape Photography World, a podcast for everyone passionate about landscape photography. I'm Grant Swinburne and I'll be your host on this show, talking to landscape photographers about their motivations, likes and dislikes. Alexandra MacAlpine, better known as Zan, is the founder and sole operator of The Social Hurt, a creative hub she runs from home in the central west of New South Wales. Living on a mixed farm with her husband Alex, Zan draws inspiration from her rural surroundings and Alex's insights into marketing products to farmers. With a background in design and photography from the University of Technology in Sydney, Zan initially pursued a career in marketing and communications. It wasn't until 2020 that she combined her skills and passion for photography by starting The Social Hurt. Through her business, Zan collaborates with rural-based enterprises offering strategic and creative marketing solutions. Zan's photography is authentic, showcasing everyday individuals at work, including her husband Alex on their property. She uses a mix of ground and aerial shots, often employing a drone to capture dynamic images. Her limited edition prints, with only 25 copies each, are intended to be timeless and unique. Each day presents new opportunities for Zan to capture the rural beauty and hard-working spirit of her community. Alexandra shares how her daily life deeply influences her photography. She discusses the importance of showcasing women in agriculture, her journey from studying design and photography to finding her niche in rural landscapes, and the challenges and joys of working with livestock. She also highlights how her work promotes understanding between rural and urban communities and reflects on the evolving role of photography in telling authentic stories of the land. Her insights are a testament to the power of photography in capturing the timeless beauty of rural Australia and its hard-working people. I hope you enjoy the show. G'day, Alexandra. Welcome to Landscape Photography World. How are you going?
I'm very well. Thank you, Grant. Thank you for having me.
It's a real pleasure to have you on the show. I've been looking at your work for the past few weeks and I've followed you for a little while, but really keen to talk to you about why you're a landscape photographer and why you do landscapes and what is it about that genre that really makes you interested in doing them.
Yeah, a lot of my inspiration comes from where we live. We live on the land. We're located between Grenfell and Cowra in the central west of New South Wales.
Yep.
And my husband and I, we run a property here that's holistically managed, so regenerative concepts. And we have merino sheep and Angus cattle. And that sort of, I suppose because I'm seeing that every day.
Yeah.
I love living here. That sort of is my main source of inspiration of the photos I take and the landscapes that I see and capture every day, really.
Yeah, nice. I know that you've also done a bit of work in terms of using your photography to promote, in particular, women on the land and working the land. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah. Within the agricultural industry, there's been a huge increase in women who, launching their careers in agriculture, which is a really exciting time to see. Obviously, back in the 50s, 60s, it was quite a male-orientated career focus. So it's really nice to see women my age, especially, and women before me who have worked the land and now are only just being realised as that they can do it as equal as men. I suppose it's just nice to see that there's women like me who are doing similar things and living on the land and raising a family, and they've also got massive knowledge. I suppose rural women are a big focus on the subjects that I photograph because I too am a rural woman, and it's just really exciting to see that. I think especially work arrangements becoming more flexible, it allows women to do more and be more involved in ag-based careers. So it's just really nice to see that when I am out photographing and working with clients, whether they be cattle studs or merino studs or sheep studs, whatever it is, that it is a sort of, it's both partners are involved, both husband and wife team, or it's just really nice to see that, more women are getting more involved.
Yeah, that's awesome to see. In terms of the photography side of things, where did that really kick off for you? Where did the bug bite?
I've always been quite interested in photography since school. I'm quite a creative person, so I was drawn to more creative subjects at school, visual arts, photography, design and technology, steered away from the science and the mathematics-based subjects. And from there, I studied a Bachelor of Design majoring in photography and situated media at the University of Technology, Sydney. And it was quite an interesting degree in that it was photography focused, but it didn't lean into a lot of the techniques, which I always struggled with. I just picked up a camera and went with it. I didn't understand the basics and the techniques behind aperture and shutter speed, and I just skipped that whole step. And so you learn about it in school, but who remembers anything they do in school?
That's right.
So when I went and studied at uni, I missed that whole technique part, and it was more focused on, I suppose, an art-based direction and incorporating photography into various media creative ways. And the thing with photography, I know university for me wasn't that long ago, but it was still in the time when it was more, if you wanted to be a photographer, you either went into photojournalism or you went to lifestyle shoots, wedding photography, that sort of thing. And it just wasn't I didn't enjoy taking those sort of photos. Sort of once I finished the degree, put the camera aside and went into a more event and marketing based career within local government. And then when I moved back to Wagga, I was born and raised in Wagga and went to school in Sydney and uni. And when I decided to move back to Wagga, it's when I picked up a role with a agricultural based company who was looking for someone with marketing experience but could also take photos and have a photography background. And that's when the two sort of collided and came back together, and I realized, this is actually something I really enjoy taking. Like, I really enjoyed being outdoors, being with rural-based people, taking photos of livestock, being in the yards, in the shearing sheds, traveling around Australia, all these different country towns that I hadn't been with. It was just a really nice time and I really enjoyed it. And that's when I realized that's the type of photography that I enjoyed.
It certainly shows you in your work. The stuff that I've seen from you is really, I guess, showing those quintessential rural scenes from Australia, and they literally couldn't be anywhere else. They really have this sense of place. And you mentioned that where you live, obviously, it heavily influences that. I guess I'm always interested in, has that not just influenced the subjects, but also how you actually take the photos, or the techniques that you're using to take the photos?
The techniques, it's definitely, when I'm out on a shoot and I'm working with livestock in particular, they're very unpredictable. They're not going to do what you want them to do. So it's really more a matter of you just got to work with what you've got. You can definitely set up a scene. Like, a lot of farmers can be quite camera shy, which is another reason why I never got into lifestyle family focused photography, because I'm so terrible at cues and telling people what to do and where to look and what to I just like people that I work with to be doing what they love, and I just think the shoot flows a lot better. So there's definitely certain scenes that I set up for my clients to do, just so I can capture the certain shot that they might need for their business, mustering in the paddock or in the yards and things like that, or checking a mob of cattle or things like that. But most of the time it's just really on a whim. And it depends, working with the light and the season especially. Summer, you're going to have a lot more of those dry, dusty scenes. So towards the end of the evening, it's just the most beautiful scenery when the dust is being kicked up.
You get that filtered light.
Yeah, exactly. So I definitely don't plan anything or use any particular techniques. It's really just focusing on aperture. Is my main thing, is focusing what it is that I want to focus on the subject, or what it is that I'm shooting, or whereabouts I'm framing the landscape. And then just, yeah, everything else is just whatever I can do, I just go for it.
Yeah. I was going to ask, how challenging is it to plan a shoot? Obviously, if you're going out there and you got someone dealing with a mob of cattle or sheep or whatever it is, you're having to react to where the subject's moving, and that's not always where you want the light or where the light is. And
Yeah.
so does that make it a real challenge to bring a shot together?
It does, definitely, but sometimes that's when the best photos come out, because you just give it all. You give it all to whatever you've got in front of you. Bugger it, I can't control this, so I'm just going to go with whatever I've got. It's especially with if I'm out there photographing livestock when they're classing in the yards, they're not going to class at 6 p.m. at night when the sun is big.
Right.
They're going to be classing at
you got harsh light,
in the morning
whether you
with
like
the
it
harsh,
or not. Yeah.
Exactly. So you've really just got to work with what you've got. And I think that having knowledge and experience of how cattle and sheep move is obviously quite imperative, because it can be unsafe in the yards if you're in the wrong spot, or you've got sheep that are quite flighty. They're going to jump out of the yard sometimes, or when they're running through the races and things like that. So actually having knowledge of how stock move, and it's a very fine line between needing to be close enough that you can capture what you need, but not close enough that you're going to spook them or get in the way of what they're doing.
Yeah, right.
I just work with whatever they're doing on the day. So I don't want to get in their way, but I sometimes might just have to step in there for a second just to get the shot, and then I'll move out of the way. But yeah, it's just, but that's what I enjoy the most, is not having to think too much about a shoot or prepare too much in advance. I can just go there and really just enjoy the surroundings and take advantage of whatever I can at the time of the shoot. Yeah.
Cool. How important is it for you anyway to have projects to work on? Do you work on shoots as projects, or are you more flexible and just more spontaneous in your shooting?
Do you mean like a shoot list and things
when
I'm outside? Yeah. I suppose it's a bit of both, and it depends on the type of the shoot. If I'm doing a photo shoot for a rural-based publication, they obviously have a set list of photos that they like, and so I usually try and stick to that. But then there's always going to be that few that just happen on the whim, and that's always just a nice little addition, especially for the media outlet to have included in their shoot. But if I'm working directly with a client, as I said, with a stud client, again, they have a certain list of photos they need to promote their stud. Close-ups of rams, full body shots of rams and bulls, and that they can be quite picky and choosy with the ram or the bull that you photograph, because they're marketing their stud and they want them to look the best they can. And so I really like to try and work with them as best as possible and make sure I can show them in the best light. But then I also try and encourage those overarching photos, which is where the landscape shots come in, because when it comes to marketing your stud in particular, yes, your livestock are important, but your clients also want to know where they've been raised, how you run them, the type of land you're running them on, what they're eating, things like that. It's just really nice I always try to encourage that part of the shoot for my clients too, just so they have the whole package. And then that's something that they can use across all their social media channels, websites, brochures, things like that.
So what about your own personal work, the stuff you do for you? Yes,
that's certainly hit and miss at the moment. I was quite more regular taking my camera out when my husband Alex would be out mustering or in the yards, but since having children, definitely not as regular as I used to be. And luckily our son Jim, who's 3, he loves going out with his dad, so that makes it a lot easier for me to go out with them both. And I do a lot of aerial photography. That's probably when the drone comes in. I don't know what it is about laneways, but I do this piece on my social media channel, on my social media pages, where I sit the drone in the one spot, and usually when Alex is moving the sheep or the cattle along the laneway, it's just a matter of them moving underneath the drone, and it's just very mesmerizing to watch how livestock move, especially sheep that sort of look like they're underwater, or a flock of birds or something like that.
Yeah, they tend to have this really, I guess, natural flow to them when they're moving in a group. And it's, I've watched a few of those videos myself. And you do just, I guess it's a bit hypnotizing, isn't it?
It is, and I think it's the music.
It's relaxing.
Yeah, it's very relaxing music. I think a lot of people will think that people who live on the land, it's all country music and rough and tumble, but it's really important that you do remain calm and you're relaxed and you're not stressed, because if you're stressed, you're going to make your livestock stress. Yeah. So if you can move them at a slow pace and let them move at their own time, it's just going to make a much more enjoyable muster.
Yeah, definitely.
Very little force, obviously, is also very important. So I suppose that's where Alex is big on when he comes to mustering. It's as trying to use the dogs as little as possible. He obviously will use them to get them all together in the paddock, but when it comes time to move them down the laneway, what's the rush? You might as well enjoy the scene.
That's it.
The land, and just have a moment to yourself and enjoy the thoughts, which is what it usually does. And the sheep move at their own time, which is really nice. And I think that's just what I really enjoy capturing. And it's just really nice. If I can, I try to go out mustering with Alex when I can, but it's not as regular as it used to be.
One of the key things that I get from your photography is your ability to communicate and visually, and the stories that your images, even if it's just a single still image, not necessarily a video or whatever, the stories that they tell. How important is it to you to convey and build a story in your images?
I think storytelling has always been a big part of a creative person's process. It's how we are able to communicate what it is that we're doing. And I think that's where photography and marketing intertwine really well, because when it comes to marketing, I suppose my approach is a bit more creative, and I do enjoy telling a story when I take a photo. Often I like to work with, as I said, work with whatever's available to me at the time. So I can't fake anything. I can't put anything in place. A lot of the photos that I edit, they're very natural. I don't like to saturate them too much, overexpose them too much, so I think that helps with the storytelling process, is because I'm trying to keep them as authentic as I possibly can. And I think the lay of the land is a big part of storytelling. You can't, the way that mountains rise and fall and whatever's growing in the season, dry for summer, green for winter, that's a big part of how I can explain a story or what we're doing in a season.
Yeah, sure.
I suppose I would say my storytelling is very authentic and natural, and just working with what I've got in front of me.
Yeah, I'd certainly agree with that. Definitely comes across in your work. Obviously, the environment plays a big part in your work, and as you said, the way that crops are growing, or just the natural foliage and whatever is growing. But how important is that to you to get across to people the importance of the environment in your work?
I think it's critical, especially in today's age and society. The division between rural and city life is only becoming bigger, which is, on the other hand, people are more interested in knowing where their food comes from, yet the divide is growing. It's a very interesting crossroad that we're at. For us here, environment, the weather patterns, everything plays a huge role in what we do here. My husband is a big fan of the weather apps and looking at them very regularly. So they do play, the weather and the environment plays a big role in what I capture. And again, that comes down to not altering or changing anything or superimposing anything on my photos. And that's, I think, another beauty, as what you're doing, same with storytelling. That's another big part of the beauty of working with a dry summer or a cold, wet winter. There's beauty in every season. It's just a matter of looking at it and thinking about how you want to approach it. The biggest thing.
Cool. Have you ever challenged yourself to think outside of the box and experiment with different approaches and different techniques?
I think Yes and no. The type of clients I'm working with, sometimes they are outside what I would usually photograph. And so that's always a bit like if a client calls me, and I think one, for example, was they raise hens like for pasteurized eggs.
Yeah, right.
I've never photographed chickens before, but I would love to come out and photograph them. I'm sure they're like any form of livestock. They will do their own thing and you just work with whatever you've got. So
sure.
Yeah, that was quite a fun shoot, photographing a bunch of hens. So yeah, there's definitely times, any shoot you get tested with the light, definitely. And sometimes I might not have, because I'm working rather quickly, I might not have the right aperture set or the shutter speed's not quick enough.
Yep.
So then I'm back on the computer when it comes time of editing and I'm like, oh, this is not working with my preset that I want to do. And it's a matter of having to think about how I'm going to edit them, presets and things. And that's where black and white for me comes in handy, because the shot might be beautiful, but it might just be a little bit blurry or not entirely focused. And it's not one that I want to delete. So I usually turn it into a black and white image, and then it can still be used, which is a really nice part of the process. So yeah, I suppose there's definitely times in every shoot that I'm challenged, but in terms of thinking outside of landscape or ag-based or rural-based photography, I'm yet to photograph an interior or anything. That would certainly be a challenge for me. Yeah.
What does success look like in your photography?
I think a lot of it comes down to enjoying the shoot, like on the day. I want the clients that I photograph for to also enjoy the time with me. I don't want them to feel pressured or uncomfortable. And often the shoot will go over because we often will chat a bit, talk about what they're doing in their operations that they're doing on their property. And so that's always a successful part, when I leave a shoot and everyone's happy and they're really looking forward to seeing the photo. And I suppose it's always nice to get that feedback once you've finished the gallery and you send it off and they write how much they love it and are using the images that you've photographed. I think that's a big thing too. A lot of people might not necessarily use them straight away or not use very many, and it's always a bit of a shame when you put so much work and effort into it and you're not seeing, you're hoping that they like them, but you're not seeing them anywhere. Success for me is just the pure joy of doing what I love. That for me personally is success for me.
Yeah, nice. I think the subjectivity of photography is amazing too. You give a client a bunch of images and there's, say, 3 or 4 or 5 that you really like, and then they don't use them. They use the ones that you're going to go, they're all right.
Yeah, and definitely when it comes to publications and print media, that's a really big thing.
Yeah.
It's so interesting to see, as you said, what other people pick and what they like compared to what you think is going to work. And I think that comes down to page layouts and cropping and things like that.
Yeah.
But I suppose it's really good now that a lot of the publications have social media platforms or some form of digital media outlet where they can use more of those landscapes, which might not get used in the print form.
Yeah.
So that's always nice. Yeah.
With running your business, what's the most important thing that you've learned?
Not to take on too much. So to spread out the work that I'm doing, especially with having 2 small children. I like to be very present for them and also be very present for Alex if he ever needs help, even though I'm here on the properties. I try not to take off more than I can chew, which ensures that I do a good job for the clients that I have at the time. And what was the question again? I've forgotten.
What's the most important thing you've learned in running your business?
In the business.
But that's a great answer.
That's probably the biggest one for me, and that was a big learning curve, because the first few years I was just so excited to do the work I was doing, and I still am equally excited, but it's just a matter of spreading it out and taking the time. I still will get to the point where if there's a client that calls and I really want to work with it, I will make it work. And I don't know, I think that's just the persona of rural people too. They're just so easygoing and flexible.
Yeah.
They're usually happy to wait a week or two more if it means that they can get what they want and I can work with them as well. So that's always nice. And I think that was definitely the biggest learning curve for me.
Yeah. You mentioned doing that with small children and your husband working the land. How do you balance everything? And I guess you've also, on top of the photography and the actual creative side of things, you're the chief executive officer, chief marketing officer, etc., wearing lots of different hats. How do you do the juggling act?
I certainly have days that are office days when my oldest, for example, has daycare.
Yep.
I'll try and focus on being in the office and getting the work done. But again, that just comes down to planning in advance and making sure I don't have too much on my plate at one time. And I find the more I do it, the better, like the quicker you are. If I've for some reason or other don't do any photos or don't do a photo shoot for 2 or 3 months, which can often happen over winter when it's a bit quiet, and launching into spring when it's that's big for studs, that's sale time when their rams and their bulls are for sale. That can obviously take me a few shoots to get my eye back in and get quick again in processing all the photos and things. So it's a matter of just keeping it ticking along and making sure I love being organised. So luckily I'm a big person to be organised. And my husband Alex he's great. He's very independent in terms of managing the property, and as much as if he ever needs help, he definitely asks, but he's also very independent, and it's like any small business, and it's something I usually say to the clients that I work with: if you need to outsource. So if I have a bigger project that involves photography and website maintenance or building a website and social media management and branding, I'll often collaborate with other designers to get the project done quicker, because otherwise they're going to be waiting a few months because I'm only part-time and full family and things. So collaborate where you can, because there's lots of very talented people out there. And I think that's where your creative process can also evolve and mature, and you're learning of other people who are equally as talented and skilled. So it's always nice.
You mentioned the marketing skills that you've got. What advice would you give to a photographer, landscape or otherwise, that wanted to get into their own business about marketing their personal brand?
I think if you've got I think just putting yourself out there is a big thing. Imposter syndrome is a big thing for lots of creatives. And they can look at other people's work on social media and go, I'm nowhere near that.
I wish I could do that.
You just got to have faith in yourself that what you're creating is beautiful. And if you're happy with it, you should be proud of that and you should be putting it out there. Social media plays a big role for us creatives, especially Instagram. So if you're regularly interacting with your followers and you're posting and you're happy with your work, that's obviously a big thing. And just ignore all the thoughts in your head when you're looking at fellow photographers and admiring their work and thinking yours isn't good enough. And I also think a website is a really big part, especially if you're wanting to promote your work and your brand and your portfolio. People are going to look at your social media and they're going to look at your website. So having the two interlinking and making sure they're up to date and user-friendly for your website especially, that's a big part of,
Great advice. One of the things a lot of photographers struggle with in their businesses is pricing their work. Do you have a formula that you use for pricing, or is it more, a lot of photographers I know are really flexible in their pricing based on what the client is, what their budget is, etc.?
Yeah, I suppose with my business, The Social Herd, because I offer photography, probably plays 80% of the work I do for clients, and then 20% would be marketing related. So whether it be a website, social media, content creation, writing, things like that. I'm quite flexible in the pricings that I do if it's a combination of the two. If it's just purely a photo shoot, I do have set packages. 2 hour, 4 hour, 6 hour, full day packages. And that's the same for film that I do as well. So they're always set, regardless if they want a photo shoot and a website built, the photography packages remain the same. And then I'll often quote, if it's a website build, I'll quote off the number of pages they require and how many hours it's going to take me and whether they need content written and things like that. And then if it's smaller little things, strategy sessions or social media help and things like that, I usually go off a per hour charge. And yeah, I think that's a lot of the clients that I work with, because they're equally small business or family orientated businesses, they don't want the big packages that a lot of larger marketing agencies offer. It can be a bit overwhelming for them.
And expensive too.
And expensive. And when they're already managing a huge operation, their brain is being consumed by that operation itself. They don't have time to think about where they'd like to be in 5 years with their brand and stuff. They're definitely thinking about it, but they probably just can't explain it in the way that is required for a lot of strategy sessions and bigger marketing packages. So that's where I like to keep flexible, and I suppose that's the relationship builds over time. And that's how I suppose retain clients, is because they can come to me and talk to me about the next, like a step-by-step process, rather than being like, here's this huge package that we're going to work on for a year.
Yeah, right.
When, especially in my time of small children and my own operation here with my husband, I don't even have time to maintain a client very regularly for that length of time. So I also like the step-by-step process of starting with one thing or two things and then working from there. Yeah, so that's how I price it. The biggest thing for me, though, when it came to pricing, working out, is because I have a print store. That was the biggest thing, was working out how to price my prints. And it's an ongoing thought process for me, which I think a lot of photographers would have.
Yeah, I know. I haven't cracked it yet.
Yeah. Again, I think that's like an imposter syndrome thing too, because you look at some other people's work that you love, and you're like, oh, am I pricing myself too much or too little? Like
getting that sweet spot where people will buy it, but
exactly. Yeah. And it's like any form of
making money out of it. It's a tough one.
Yeah, and it's like any form of art. It's a print, you're not going to sell a print a day. Well, if I was selling a print a day, I would be stoked. But it's like any form of artwork that people want for their walls, it's something that comes a bit more sporadically.
Yeah, definitely. Let's talk a little bit about where you live. You mentioned how it's influenced how you shoot and also what you shoot. How would you describe to somebody that's never been in rural New South Wales, for example, and Grenfell in particular, how would you describe it to somebody in terms of the landscape and the light?
It's very undulating country, like very soft rolling hills. I could talk to you about the soil, but it's very fertile soil, beautiful dark rich stuff. But there's also a mixture of clay based and rocky rigid areas, especially in our property. It's a really nice mix of everything. But yeah, I think it's just really dreamy to look at, especially when the sun's setting in the west over the Wetton Mountains. Just beautiful colours. But I think where anybody lives, if the sun's setting over the ocean, or you're based up at Newcastle, aren't you?
No, Sydney. Yeah.
Sydney.
I don't get a lot of ocean sunsets.
Yeah. Wherever someone's looking, it's always beautiful, the light at that time of day. But for us here, it's the Wetton Mountains, and it's just stunning. Again, with the season, it's more like a purpley pink this time of year, autumn, winter, whereas summer, you're going to get those really nice orange hues. So yeah, it's the countryside is just very magical to look at. We also have a heap of ironbark trees on our property, and they obviously have a more jagged, edgy look to them than the standard Australian looking gum tree, which I think stands out in the landscapes that I shoot, and they're scattered throughout the property, and it's really nice.
So what's your favourite spot that you've ever shot? And it doesn't necessarily have to be your own place, but if that's it.
Well, that definitely here would be a big one for me. And I think also that's just to do with, because I know if you'd ask the locals in town, we're not quite local yet. We've only been here for about 7 years. It's I still wake up every day and love the scenery, and I hope to continue to be like that because we love living here and we love living on the land. And
Nice.
But my husband is originally from out west on a property between Nyngan and Brewarrina, and that's something else. Like, the land out there is amazing, flat for kilometers, and it's gorgeous clay pan country, and we think the sunsets here are beautiful, but out there they're even better on the horizon line. And again,
well, you get these really long horizons, don't you? You know, it's
and just completely different colors and a lot more oranges and reds, but then the saltbush stands out in it, and it's just completely different, which is always nice to go out there and visit and enjoy the scenery out there too. So,
what's the furthest you've travelled to do a shoot?
I've travelled to, when I was working for the ag-based company in Wagga, I travelled to Nebo in Queensland, so that's probably the furthest north I've been, to a cattle operation up there to photograph some yards. That was fun, just completely different type of cattle, Bos Taurus cattle. Which was really nice to see. And then I've travelled down to Tasmania for a couple of shoots too. So that's probably the furthest south I've been, which was
nice.
Amazing. We did do a family holiday to Western Australia last year. So for my own enjoyment, I took my drone and so that wasn't for a client. We just went over there for a wedding and a bit of a holiday. So I took the drone and took a few beautiful aerials of the Western Australian coastline, which is something else as well. And they formed a series of prints on my website just because it was something completely different, coastal vibes. So but in terms of work for the social herd, it's a little bit more Central West focused just because again, in my current time, and I've traveled around Cassilis area, and then I've been down to, I'm trying to think how far south I've been. I went up to Inverell once, up north. That's probably the furthest I've been north for social herd.
Right.
And then a lot of Central West based areas around here and in the Riverina.
Cool. What's your most memorable experience out shooting?
I think there's never one shoot that's been memorable. I suppose they're all quite memorable for me because within them there's moments where you go, oh, what a shot. And you come back and you're stoked. But the clients that are based in Cassilis, I've photographed for them 3 times now. They run a cattle stud, bull stud, and it's just beautiful scenery out there. And they do similar holistic management processes on their property that we do here. So it's always nice to talk to similar people who are doing similar things. And it's just the most beautiful land up there, especially with their regenerative processes, because Cassilis area can be quite dry at times, especially in the dry seasons, and neighbouring properties will have very little feed and their property will be just full of lush ground cover and fat, happy cattle. So that's always a memorable time to go up there and work with them and see the work that they're doing. And that's a lot of fun. So that's probably my most memorable client, and it's really nice that I can go back there, say hello and photograph some more of their bulls.
What about horror stories? Have you had any close calls or any lost lenses? Or
silly mistakes on my end, like not charging it, and not for a client, but I have dropped the drone for Alex, dropped the drone in the middle of a mob of sheep because it's run out of battery. that actually got a brand new drone and I took it for a fly, and I don't know why. I think I must have just been way too excited about flying it without charging the batteries properly. And we've got a paddock across the highway. And so you've got to really pick your times when you're mustering sheep across the highway, pending traffic. So he was bringing the sheep back across the highway to this side of the property, and decided to take this brand new drone for a fly in the paddock while he was moving the sheep, and it just ran out of battery and wanted to land right in the middle, and it was the first time flying it. And I was like, for the love of God, all these sheep were running around it, they're all jumping over it because they hover, they don't actually land when they run out of battery. can see Alex just coming up towards it, and I'm like, oh, can you pick it up, please? And he's just shaking his head at it, thinking, what have you done to my mustard? So that was a bit of like, oops, sorry. Yeah, but so luckily that was in my own time and not for a client.
What's photography taught you about the world?
I suppose for me personally, for me living on the land, it's taught me that every operation is different, which is a really nice thing. People are doing different things and have different goals, but their passion is what shines through. And when you love your job, it doesn't matter what it is. It's just
doesn't feel like work.
Yeah, exactly. So that's always a nice thing to see. And it's, for photography wise, it's taught me to be very present in the moment. And yeah, as I said, like not getting too stressed out if a shoot doesn't go to plan or the muster doesn't go to plan. It's taught me to be a little bit more flexible with my shoots and not expect too much from a shoot as well. And not be too concerned if it goes over is a big thing, because as I said, livestock are very unreliable. And I just like to be able to work with the clients and get what it is that they need. So yeah, it's definitely taught me to be, I suppose, a little bit more easygoing and flexible, and yeah, not plan too far in advance. And there's definitely times where I will go to a shoot and get very overwhelmed because there's like a lot that needs to be photographed, or it's something like I did a shoot for like a garden, which you would have thought, oh, a garden is a garden.
Wander around, take photos of the flowers. Easy.
Yeah, completely different layout though. And thinking, and I got very overwhelmed. I was like, I don't know, like so many beautiful flowers, and I don't know what I need to capture or how I'm going to frame it. So yeah, and then it's just a moment of refocusing myself and being like, just treat it like any other shoot, and yeah, just focus. Don't focus too much on. Don't sweat the small things, and just enjoy it. Just enjoy it. Yeah.
Have you hit a creative wall where it's just not working for you? And if so, how did you handle that?
A lot of times, definitely during the editing process, I will sometimes hit a creative wall. Okay. And I think that's just down to, again, like settings on my camera and having just to work with whatever I got, because if I'm out on a shoot and I don't think quickly enough about shutter speed or aperture, and I'm just going on a whim with whatever it is, yeah, as I said, I can come back and the light, I just haven't captured it quite right, or it's too dark or it's too bright, and I will certainly hit a creative wall because some of my presets that I've created just won't work with that photo.
Yeah, right.
And I've just got to step away from the computer and leave it for a day and come back and maybe have a peruse of some other presets or see what other people have done with similar types of photos, and then see if I can make it work. Or it might just be a bit more manual editing, which takes obviously a bit longer of a process. But I suppose that's the control part of me, is that I like to look at every photo and not work too far in advance when I'm syncing the preset settings. Yeah, I suppose that would be the biggest thing for me. And the other thing as well is, so what I was going to say is, yeah, like when I do hit a creative process when it comes to the editing, yeah, if I just step away from the computer and leave it for a day and then come back, it's like anything, you get a fresh set of eyes again, and it's always good to you go back to, oh, it's actually not that bad, or I can make this work. But sometimes I will also hit a creative wall when it comes to sale days, just because, like ram stud sales and things, because I suppose it's because they're all very similar in the way that they're set up and the way that they're done. I like to try and keep them as individual, like each shoot I do for a client, I like them to be for them. I don't have a set list, so I like them to be different and for that photograph for that particular client. So
because one stockyard, certainly to a layman like me, looks like any other stockyard.
Yeah. And so and that's probably just me in my head. Anybody else would say the same thing, like, oh, a sale day is a sale day, but I'm like, no, but this is this person's sale day.
It's their sale day,
different to the other person's sale day. So yeah, that sometimes can get a bit in my head with the creative processes, and I'm trying to think about different angles, and that there's always still a set list of photos that I do need to get for a sale day.
Yep.
And then, so once I've done them, I try and let the creative part of me be a bit more free flowing and I do a lot of watching. I do a lot more watching at those sort of sale days because they go for a bit longer. So I like to analyze and watch people and do sneaky close-ups of people looking at the sheep or talking and like holding the booklets and things like that. I try to think about things like that in the creative process rather than being stuck in a rut, being like, here's another sheep in a pen. Like, how do I make this look good?
Or here's another auctioneer saying sold,
Yeah, exactly. So I try and think, outside of that main subject and think about the wider picture.
The Australia, particularly with the auctioneers, because I know a lot of them go around yard to yard, so they're quite often the same guy.
Yes, yeah. I do have my regulars that I like to say hello to. You get to know them.
How do you get around the creativity there of trying to take shots of them differently?
Yeah, definitely. When it comes to the actual sale time, you've got your standard shots that they're going to be behind a pylon of some sort, and they're going to be going through each pen. So that's obviously very same. But often, luckily, they're wearing different clothes at each sale. So
you'd hope
slightly
so.
differently. They're wearing a different coloured shirt or something, which always helps. But they're again, because they might be at a merino stud one day and then they might be at a Dorset stud another day.
Right.
Slightly different sheep because it's slightly different clientele base. So that's always helps. Because merinos, obviously, they're big on wool. So they'll be looking at the type of wool and looking at the fleeces and things like that. But if you go to a Port Dorset sale, they're looking at the carcass and the muscle that on them. So the way they're reading the sheep or looking at the sheep and before the sale is different, which helps a lot.
Yeah, cool. Where do you see photography in society, and in particular in rural society?
Where do I see it?
Yeah, what place do you think it has in society?
I think it definitely took some time to have a place, and now I do feel like it has reached a spot where it is imperative and it has a place in society, especially, as I said, that connection between city and country is only, the divide's only getting bigger. And with the influx of AI and all those other tools, it can get lost, the actual understanding of rural-based life and the importance of agriculture especially, and how much it, without farmers, we would have nothing to eat. It's imperative that photographers like myself and photographers that are capturing agricultural-based scenes or rural-based scenes continue to do and continue to communicate it, because otherwise the divide's only going to get bigger. And it's nice to see that, especially in bigger media outlets, that it's becoming more forefront. And I think it could be better still. It could always be better. But it's always nice to see, if you do open something in the Sydney Morning Herald or the Australian, that there is rural-based news at times. And I just think it plays a pivotal role in the paddock to plate story, and I think people are very interested in knowing where their food comes from. It plays a pivotal role, and it should and will continue to play a pivotal role, I believe.
Okay. What do you see as the biggest challenge facing photography right now?
AI, definitely. I like to not read too much into it because it scares me. And I suppose the control freak in me likes to have as 100% control over my photos when I'm editing them. I do know there's a lot of AI tools out there where you can put your photos in to be edited and they come back to you and all done. But I don't think
I'm not about that either. I like control.
So that sort of scares me. What else? I think also a lot of businesses don't feel they need a photographer because the quality of iPhones in particular are improving, and they just feel confident that they can capture their own photos. And if it works for them and they feel like they have the time to do it and put into it, then yes, definitely. That if that works for them, good on them. But a lot of times the iPhone photos, they've got their certain sizing and things like that. What were you trying to say?
limitations.
Yeah, they got their
The
certain
sensor size alone means you can't blow them up very big. They're fine for
exactly.
social media. They're fine for some electronic media, but they're not much
Yeah,
chop for print. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, or websites like those large banner photos. The resolution on them is shoddy. But yeah, I think that's. I always try to encourage the clients I work with, and not necessarily choose me that as the photographer, although most of the time I would love to be. But yeah, I always try to encourage the clients to invest in a photographer, and if they work with a photographer and they like their work, to continue to work with them, because then they've got that certain style and aesthetic and preset, so it all continues to flow, which for as part of your branding is essential that you maintain that sort of brand and that style.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I always to promote photographers where I can, or encourage them in, if there's a shoot that I can't make, or for some reason it's too far away, as much as I would love to say yes to every single photo shoot, or it's just not going to work with my schedule, I always recommend a list of other photographers, and as much as possible I try to do it in their area, which is, it's always good to support local people. So yeah, I think that would probably be the biggest thing is people and their iPhones, especially, and AI.
I do a bit of real estate work and things for Airbnb clients and that sort of thing, and the number of times you see some really weird looking photos that people are trying to sell their product or sell their Airbnb or whatever it is, and you go, you really need help.
Oh, I'm always impressed by real estate photographers and how they can make the room look so big.
Oh, that's just wide angle lens. They stand in the corner with a wide angle lens. There's a bit more to it than that. That you got to get the line straight and everything. But basically, that's really all it is. It's a wide angle lens, and you get as far back in the corner as you can to take the shot, and it does make the room look a lot bigger than it really is.
Yeah, which is like, and then you go and look at it and first thing you're like, oh, this room is much smaller than I.
That's only 3 feet wide.
They fooled me again.
Yeah. What do you see as or what's your relationship with social media like? You mentioned that it's important to have. Have you got a love-hate relationship with it? Do you love it? Do you hate it?
No, I really enjoy it, but I think people can have a hate relationship with it because they get bogged down in it too much.
Yeah.
And I feel like they feel like they need to post often or every day, and that's when it can be very consuming and draining and exhausting. Whereas if you just for my social media pages in particular, Instagram is my most active page. I do have Facebook, but I don't post as regularly on it as I do Instagram. And if I just post something on there once a week, I'm pretty happy with that.
Sure.
I definitely have a scroll every day and try and engage with the people I follow, and can comment and share and things like that, and direct message, because I think the more you engage with the people you follow and your followers, the better your social media platform's going to go.
Yeah.
Because it shows that you actually care and you are paying attention to what's out there. So yeah, I do enjoy Instagram, especially. I don't think I would ever do TikTok or anything like that. Yeah. And so again, I think when I'm talking to clients that have social media channels, and same thing, they just say how hard it is or how draining it is. I always start with, we'll just post once a week and see how you go from there. And build from there if you think you've got it. But again, I think that comes down to, when I'm working with clients, whether they've got the images that they can post, which comes back to, have you got a photographer, or have you got a gallery of photos that you can work with, because you can't promote your business or your brand on social media without a good set list.
That's it.
Gallery of photos. So
and choosing the right photos is really important as well.
Yeah, exactly. And I think people can feel limited by the set sizings of Instagram. Yeah, if you've got portrait photos, obviously the Instagram has got an almost nearly portrait post.
Almost, 4 by 5.
Yeah, close enough. And their stories. obviously on the stories, I post a lot more portrait focused ones up there. So yeah, I tend to say to my clients, leave your grid for your pretty aesthetics, overarching posts, and your stories can be your real authentic nitty gritty. They don't have to be as pretty everyday sort of stuff.
Yeah.
I definitely don't do as much as the everyday sort of stuff on my stories as I do my overarching posts, just because I suppose when I'm not in the office, as I said, I like to be very present with my children and husband. So I'm not out there posting regular story content. It's more all the stuff on the grid for me.
What's your favourite thing about being a photographer?
That's a really hard question. I think that I think the biggest thing for me is capturing the content or the photos that the clients envision in their head is always like a really exciting part of it. And I just really, as a photographer, as I said, like every property, every client, every operation is completely different. So you're shooting something new every single time, which is always fun. And you're seeing a different lay of the land, which I really enjoy. And I like to, what else do I like? And I think, my other favorite thing is when you're actually coming back and you're uploading all your images to Lightroom or something, and you're getting really excited about, you remember, oh, I remember that one. That's hopefully going to be really good. And then you see it, you're stoked with it. That's just the best thing. And when you put your preset on, you have to do very little editing to it because you nailed it. So that's always like a thrill. And when you see the final gallery and you're looking at it and you're like, I'm pretty happy with myself. Like it's always a nice feeling rather than being like, oh, I hope this is okay. Like,
I know what you mean. What's your least favourite thing about being a photographer?
Probably having to look after my equipment, making sure it's clean and keeping the dust out of it's always hard. And as much as I would love to buy as many lenses as I can, I'm limited by budget. Yeah. So there's always like those few extra lenses that you're like, oh, they would be pretty good. But yeah, obviously you're limited by budget. But I'm like anyone, like there's certain photographers that I follow that the work I just adore. And I'm like, oh, I'll never be as good as this, or I'll never be able to do a shot like that, or how have they edited it to make the green so perfect, or like the aesthetics of that photo just screams at you in the face, like it looks cozy and warm. How did they do that? So yeah, unlike anyone, but I sometimes get a bit of imposter syndrome, but then I have to rezone myself and think about the photos I take and why I take them and why I edited them like that, and then I realize
the advice I always give to people is don't compare yourself to other people. Get inspired by them by all means, but don't compare yourself to them, because they're at their point in their journey and you're at your point. And you might aspire to create an image like that, but look back at your own work and compare yourself to your past self.
Yeah.
And there you can see if there's no progress, then you've got a problem. But if usually you're going to see, okay, well, I've improved from where I was 2 years ago, 5 years ago, etc.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I think people, a lot of creatives in particular, will look at their old Instagram posts and feel like they need to delete them. But I think that's part of the journey.
Get rid of that. I don't do that personally. Everything I've ever posted is still there. So.
Yeah, same. And it's just part of the journey and part of the storytelling.
Exactly.
Yeah, people can see how far you've come and what you've done, and that's always a nice thing. But I did hit a mark a couple of years ago with the type of photos I was taking, and was just really pleased with that. So it's something like I continue to try and maintain, and I definitely like to experiment, but I suppose there's comfort in knowing that there's a certain aesthetic and a certain style that I found and I really like to enjoy capturing and editing, and that always helps with my confidence if I have decided to experiment and it's not working. I can go back to that.
What's the best or worst piece of advice anyone's ever given you?
There's a few photographers that I look up to and have contacted when I need advice on something, and any form of advice they give me is always followed through, and it's always been a huge help. So there's never one bit of advice. It's just like something that I still contact them on the regular to ask, what would I do in this scenario? Or how am I doing this on Lightroom and why isn't it working? So those photographers I always always love their advice. And then I don't know, yeah, actually there was one good piece of advice I got from a photographer when I was just starting out, because I was looking at cameras and what to get. I wanted to upgrade from my Canon kit that I'd had since university days and actually invest in some good quality gear. And he said it's not the body that you need to invest in, it's the lenses, which sort of rang true and is quite it's and something that I continue to do. Is I've got a really nice camera body. I shoot with an Sony A7 III, which I love. But the lenses that I invest in, I try and get the good quality ones and the ones that are interchangeable, obviously, with the Sony camera and things. But that was a good piece of advice I got, because I was looking at a camera body that was a huge investment, and then when he said to me that it's the lenses that play a big role, that was always good. Any bad advice that you've thrown away? Not necessarily bad advice, but I think presets play a big role in editing these days, and there's so many different preset kits out there, and people are like, oh yeah, just buy one of those and download them and it'll be fine. But it's not fine, because your settings are completely different to the editing settings of that preset, and also what you're shooting and the vibe and the story that you're trying to tell might not mix with that. So yes, you can definitely download presets, but I wouldn't ever use them as they've been purchased. So I would add it and then alter it afterwards. Use it as a base, I guess, and alter it after that. I've got one preset that I always use, and basically it just defaults everything to 0. Oh yeah, and then I manually then start from there. That's definitely a good one. I certainly have. I don't have 1 or 2 presets. I probably have 4 or 5 that I weave in and out of, depending again. And it's just very interesting how much light can play a role, and the scenery and the different types of shots, like how much they can change. I just find it helps me particularly if I'm going back in the archive and I go to an image that I edited before, and you pull up because it's got the XMP attached to it, you pull up the raw file. And of course, your old edits are there, or your old settings are there, and you go, no, get rid of that. Reset. Start again. Now let's do this again. No, it's so interesting. And sometimes, it's definitely interesting here, like when I'm photographing at home and Alex is mustering in one paddock, and then I upload that gallery, and then I go to another paddock and upload that as a separate gallery, and I put the same preset on each of the galleries, how completely different they are. And it's just amazing. Might be similar time of day, but it might be a different season, and you're like, God, it's just amazing how much they can change depending on positioning and just angle of the light during the same afternoon. You got a slightly higher angle, and then as it gets lower or opposite in the mornings, and different types of grasses and things. Exactly. You move, as you said, from one paddock to another. For me, I'll go from this part of a rock shelf on a beach to another part, and the stone is different. The color of the rocks are completely different. Might have more blue in it, or more cyan or something than where you were before. And again, I think that comes down to talking to other photographers and other creatives, and then because when I was doing it, I was like, is it only me that's doing this, or is this like very normal? And talking to other people, it's like, no, that's very normal. You're like, very normal. God, I thought I was doing something wrong. Thank goodness it's not just me. All right, we'll have to start wrapping up shortly. I've got a couple more questions. One is, are there any photographers that you think I should be talking to? Yes, there are some beautiful rule-based photographers that are doing some amazing things and pop up very quickly in the people I follow. There's one that I can think of at the top of my head, which is Rachel Lenahan, which she's based Marengo Way, which is maybe an hour from here. And she does some beautiful work, and is often someone I will call to be like, what am I doing wrong here, Rachel? Like, she's just so chatty and similar to me, living on the land. And storytelling is, you look at her photos and she tells 1,000 stories, and her print store is equally beautiful. There's this galah print that I've been eyeing off on her store that I'm yet to still purchase. But really admire her work. And then who else? Because I'm trying to think of landscape-based ones. The other one is Jessica Howard. She does really beautiful stuff, and she's based a bit further north. Yeah, I love her work too. It's beautiful. A lot of, like, she definitely does landscapes, but also a lot of rural-based people portrait shots, which are beautiful.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So they would probably be my two standouts, but there's so many more that I could tell you if I had a list prepared beforehand.
That's totally fine. Thank you very much. My last question is one of the most important ones that I ask, because lots of landscape photographers, but other photographers as well, are really trying to get to the bottom of this question. Do you like pineapple on pizza?
No, definitely not. What a bizarre question, but no, I definitely do not like pineapple on pizza. And we're big fans of homemade pizza here. And yes, pineapple does not feature on our pizza list.
Fair enough. Fair enough. That's okay.
Are you a pineapple fan? Are you, Grant?
If it's there, I'll eat it. If it's not, I don't order it. So
you're brave. I will pick it off. I will not eat it.
No, it's fine. Sweet and savoury are fine together, but I know it's an aversion for some.
Yeah.
All right. It's been wonderful getting to know you, Alexandra. Where can people find your work?
So they can find, I do have, as I said, Instagram, which is my biggest platform that I post on, which is at @thesocialherd_AU. And then I also do have a website which promotes the marketing side of the work that I offer as part of the business, which is www.thesocialherd.com.au. So yeah, they're probably the two main areas. And then I do have a Facebook page, which is just The Social Herd. But yeah, Instagram is where I'm at.
All right, brilliant. Thanks very much.
No, that's okay. Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed it.
It's been wonderful having you on the show.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks again for listening to Landscape Photography World. I hope you enjoyed the show, and keep listening, because I'll be joined by some great guests in upcoming episodes. You can find my work in this podcast at grantswinburnphotography.com. I also have prints and photography gear on that website, so if you're looking for a good deal, hit me up and I'll sort you out. I'm also on Vero, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram and Facebook. I'm Grant Swinburne. Hope to see you out shooting soon.